All together, everyone. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare
Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Vitarane, Nivasesha Swanyavadi, Prashakti Devi. Om Agyanataminandasya, Vinadyanasya Kaya, Taksik Militan, Tasmashki, Vilavena, Sri Caitanya Mahavisan, Sahitam Jena Vikare, Sanayam Upakadana, Yukadati Sahatam. Vansakalpatrudasya, Kripasinduvaivita, Caritamrta Vaishnadeyo Namo. Happy to see everyone. And we can glorify Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and everyone else who Krishna's Kaviraj glorifies together, and it will be so much fun and exciting too. Now the only problem is, where did we leave off exactly? Now, I got one idea from a last recording, but what I remember and where my bookmark was that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Maharaj Prataparudra and Gopinath Acharya were on the roof of the palace. Do you remember that? Honest Brahmin boy. And they were looking at the devotees from Bengal who just had come to Jagannath Puri. Now, I would like to just tell a little bit of the events that led to this. Mahaprabhu had just returned from South India, and in the 10th chapter, in the end of the 9th chapter, he returns. In the 10th chapter, he's in Jagannath Puri, and the first thing that happens, in one sense, is devotees go to Bengal to tell the devotees of Bengal that Mahaprabhu has returned from his tour of South India. Because when one went on a tour like that and is gone for 2 years, one doesn't know if the person's ever going to come back, practically speaking. Mahaprabhu's brother, Shankaracharya, didn't come back. So in any case, the devotees from Bengal immediately started for Jagannath Puri to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. It's hard to understand with my material, finite intelligence and experience what their excitement was and how eager they were to have again the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was their life. They had spent years together chanting, and the spiritual world had opened up in his presence. And then he took sannyas, and then went to Jagannath Puri, and then went on his 2-year tour of South India. And now he had returned, and they could see him again. And even though it was weeks, and perhaps somewhere between 2 weeks and a month's worth of walking, they were eager to do it. It was difficult parts of the warring parts of India at that time. They just wanted to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And at the same time, while Mahaprabhu was away, Maharaj Prataparudra had heard about the great change of heart, the great transformation that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had undergone, because he was the greatest scholar, greatest known scholar in India at that time. And suddenly, from being an impersonalist, a great follower of Sripad Shankaracharya, he was suddenly a great ecstatic devotee. And this was because he had heard, Maharaj Prataparudra had heard, this was because of the association of one saintly person named Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya. So as soon as Prataparudra came to Jagannath Puri, he asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya about this person, and he said, I want to see him. Because naturally, if someone is so powerful like that, one wants to be in his association, to remove all the material miseries, basically, that one has to confront within the material world. So he wanted to have Mahaprabhu's association. The king had a desire, he had power, but he still wanted this. So he asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to please arrange a meeting between him and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And kings they want something done, and they want it done now. They're used to giving orders and having their orders fulfilled. Why? Because that's what it's like being a king. That's how dangerous it is to be a king, because ultimately one gets enveloped in an illusion that you're in control and whatever you want is supposed to happen. And that's certainly an illusion, because this is the material world, whether you're a king or an ant, little, how do you say, chitti, how do you say in?
Kitty.
That's in
Chitti.
Chitti, that's in Hindi, I think. Pipri in Bengali, if I remember. Do you? Anyway, now you know. It's something like that anyway. So the king, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, said, he's such a renunciant. He'll never meet a king. He won't meet a king. He said it more gently than that, because when you're dealing with a king, you have to be very gentle and be very polite and respectful, because he has so much power and it's just natural. So he said he won't be able to meet him. He doesn't meet kings because he's a renunciant. And one takes on the desires of those who one associates with. So if a renunciant associates with a king who's so surrounded by material opulence all the time, just naturally those desires will enter his heart. So therefore, traditionally, sannyasis kept their distance from kings, and kings naturally wanted to control everyone. So you need some money, you have a project, I'll give you this. And sannyasis were very, very careful about this. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave him bad news that Mahaprabhu won't see you. But he said, I'll try anyway. So Mahaprabhu had just returned, and that's what happened in the 10th chapter. And then in the 11th chapter, Mahaprabhu returns in the 10th, and the 11th chapter returns just when the Snanayatra festival of the bathing of Lord Jagannath takes place. And then he after Lord Jagannath bathes, he catches a cold. This is the pastime. And during that time, the 2 weeks when no one can see him because of his illness, his paint is if there's any, what is it called, renovation or anything required in his transcendental body, it's done during that 2 weeks to prepare him for Rath Yatra. So when Lord Jagannath couldn't be seen, and Caitanya Mahaprabhu was in Jagannath Puri, again, without having love for Krishna, this is so inconceivable. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was outside of Jagannath Puri, his desire to see Lord Jagannath was so great. He saw him as Shyamsundar, basically, as Krishna. He was in the mood of Sri Radha. But then, while in Jagannath Puri, the place of Lord Jagannath, and not being able to see the Lord of his life, Jagannath, this was intolerable for him. He could not tolerate it. This is the most exalted consciousness, obviously. But we can get a glimpse of what love for Krishna is like by the activities of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and the devotees. So he couldn't tolerate being in the same place as he always had seen Lord Jagannath, but now being in that place and not being able to see him. So therefore he went, I can't remember the number of kilometers away, 8 or 14, to Alalanath, and he saw the deity of the four-armed form of Alalanath there, and after some time, due to Mahaprabhu's presence, they would bring Jagannath Mahaprasadam to this Alalanath deity, this four-armed form deity. So, Mahaprabhu is in Alalanath, and the devotees from Bengal are coming to Jagannath Puri, and they've just basically arrived in Jagannath Puri. That's 2 parts of what's going on. And the third part was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya arrives. He's in Jagannath Puri, and Maharaj Prataparudra arrives again, and he asks Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you tried? You talked to Mahaprabhu? And he said, no, he won't see you. And Maharaj Prataparudra was so disturbed. It was confirmed. The Lord is right there and I cannot see him. And he was ready to give up his whole kingdom, practically speaking. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, I have a plan how you can see him. So that gave the king what? Hope. And we all need hope. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave him a plan that when Mahaprabhu, because Rath Yatra was very soon, during the Rath Yatra, Mahaprabhu will be in such ecstasy, and then you come not dressed as a king with your elephants and your guards and everything. You come when Mahaprabhu was resting in the gardens after Rath Yatra. You come dressed as a poor Vaishnava, just an ordinary mendicant Vaishnava person, and you'll be able to see him at that time. Mahaprabhu will be in so much ecstasy that he won't even notice that the king has come. So with that hope, something else happened. Then the brother-in-law of the king of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya came, whose name was? I hear rumblings, but not. Gopinath. And he was from the Navadvip area, and he knew Mahaprabhu, and he's a devotee of Mahaprabhu, and he came, and he came with a request. And this was one of the exalted qualities of the king. Because if say you want to see me, and I say, there's no way I'm gonna see you. And then someone says, could you do me a favor, do something for that person who just rejected you and said he won't see you. My tendency will be, go ask someone else. I mean, after all, he just said he wouldn't see me and now he's asking for something. But Maharaj to peruse his heart, and this is the nature of a true Kshatriya, or a true devotee, or a true human being, true Brahmin. He's very open-hearted and generous. The most amazing example of that is when Dronacharya, he agreed to teach Drishtadyumna, who was the martial arts, the art of war, and how to use weapons, even though he knew that it was Drishtadyumna who was going to be the one who kills him. He knew that this person if I train him and teach him, he's going to use that very knowledge to kill me. So what would you do if someone asked you to train someone on the art to kill you? I won't ask you that question because you're all such generous-hearted Vaishnavas. You would probably say yes, as Dronacharya did. And indeed, he trained Drishtadyumna, and indeed, Drishtadyumna ended up killing him. But this is the liberality, the openness, the audarya mood of devotees, of even the Brahminical class in traditional Vedic society. Very giving, not caring for the results, just giving. It's quite astounding, being brought up in this culture. Now, what could cause a person to give unendingly? Krishnadas? Did you hear the question? Okay. What could cause a person to have a kind of heart that just gives in that way? Will you say the 3 magic words, and one of them is a contraction, so in one sense it's 4 words? Should I tell you what one thing you could say is, if you don't know, you can say, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, because sometimes it's very hard to say those words. You know why? Of course, you're supposed to say, I don't know why. I tricked you again. It's because everyone, not you, but there's a tendency not to want to admit that we lack anything, including knowledge. Mataji, would you like to sit here?
You didn't know there was a program, sorry.
Well, there is one, but you're welcome to sit if you like, or you can stand, and your Prabhu also. We're speaking about Caitanya Caritamrta. Are you familiar with Caitanya Caritamrta? Are you familiar with the book? Yes. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, Gopinath Acharya came just after Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya told him, gave him hope, but had told him also that Mahaprabhu said he won't see you. Mahaprabhu even said, if you ask me again, you'll never see me here again. He was so strong about it. So Gopinath Acharya, when he came to ask Maharaj Prataparudra a favor, he said, all the devotees from Bengal are coming now. They've already arrived. But they need a place to stay. Would you provide residence for all devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Would you provide them residence, place for them to stay and food? And immediately the king said yes. So he had that serving spirit. No matter how disappointed he was, he had a serving spirit. It's a lesson. So then, since the devotees from Bengal had just arrived, then Gopinath Acharya told them that they're coming. They're so excited, they're coming to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if we go on the roof of your palace right now, we're going to be able to see them. And the king agreed. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had never seen the devotees from Bengal before because he had become, his heart has been changed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri itself. So he didn't know the devotees, so he wanted to go to the roof to see the devotees also. And Maharaj Prataparudra didn't know them, and the king and Gopinath Acharya previously knew them, so he was going to point out who they were individually. So they got to the roof, and the devotees came. And he started pointing out who they were. And they were having kirtan, and they were moving towards the Singadora, which is close to the Gambhira, where Mahaprabhu was staying. So they started having a big kirtan, several hundred devotees. A big kirtan, and they were chanting with such ecstasy. And first, when the king saw them, he said, I'm astonished. Chamatkar, I'm astonished. Vaishnavera Atse Teja Deki Nahiya. I've never seen people with such an effulgence before. Indeed, their effulgence is like the brilliance of millions of
Suns?
yes. And nor have I ever heard. So he saw them, and they looked so exceptional, exceptionally wonderful. But also they were all chanting, and he had never heard such a kirtan before. So he said, I have never heard the Lord's names chanted so melodiously. Madhura kirtan. I've never heard the Lord's names chanted sweetly like this before. And soon we'll hear why, and a little bit later it will be explained. Their consciousness that caused them to chant in this way. I have never before, the king said, I've never before seen such ecstatic love, Haridwani, nor heard the vibration of the holy names of the Lord chanted in such a way, nor seen such dancing during kirtan. So we had heard the holy names being chanted before, but not like this. They were effulgent, they were dancing, and the sound emanating from them was completely different from the sound that he had heard others while chanting the holy names. Because it depends on one's consciousness. Everything we do will have an effect depending on our consciousness. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Yes?
That's right, Guru.
Yes, but what do you think about the fact that it's right? what does it make you think? If everything that you do, it's not just doing the activities, there's two parts of an activity. Chestarupa and Bhavarupa. Chestarupa means the external, the activity itself, I'm lifting this. But Bhavarupa means the mood in which one does the activity. So the mood in which we do an activity affects how the activity is perceived, especially by Krishna.
Paramatma, Krishna.
No, Paramatma. Krishna. So what do you think about that point?
Without having connection with Krishna, we don't get the right mood.
That's a nice point, thank you. Anyone else have any other thoughts about this?
Places a lot of responsibility on the individual.
Yeah, it's weighty, because sometimes I think, well, this isn't right, and this isn't good, and I'm not getting what I wanted, and this result, well, first reaction is, I want to change the whole world, or maybe I want to leave this and do something, do it in a different way. But this places the responsibility on the depth of one's own consciousness. Because that will dictate, not dictate, but that will cause the result. Anyone else have any other thoughts about this?
It will create an impetus for one to do one's best to please the Lord and the devotees.
Yeah. And, okay, it will create an impetus to do one's best to please the Lord and one's devotees. So what other impetuses come from that impetus?
I don't know.
That, you did it. That's pretty good. I also don't know. No. Well, to find out what's pleasing, I was going to say. Yeah, how to please Krishna and his devotees. How to please Krishna and his devotees. Because unless we know how, we won't be able to act in such a way that's pleasing to them. It's like sometimes if one goes to someone's house in India and I can't eat chilies, and trying to tell a Bengali or Gujarati family that you don't want any chilies is like talking to the wall. Or anywhere in South India, North India. So you say no chilies, and then they say, okay, yes, no chilies. And you taste it, wait a second, this has chilies in it. No. But yes, it has chilies in it, little. Yes, you know what I'm talking about? Little. So anyway, people, it's hard to know what pleases a specific individual and to act in such a way that that individual is pleased. It takes desiring to please that individual more than doing what you feel like doing. That's called surrender. That's called, which is the doorway to bhakti. It's a return to our natural condition in relationship with Krishna, that we are meant to please him. So I could branch off now into 1,000 other topics and not continue, because these topics are actually very deep and very wonderful. So in any case, the king said, I have never before seen such ecstatic love. Now usually, Ache prema, ache nritya, ache harikani. So usually we don't think of, you don't see love, you experience love. But he says, I never before have seen such love. Because the mood that one has will be manifest in one's external activities. So I've never seen this, and I've never seen such love. And how is it manifest? dancing, Haridwani, calling out the names of the Lord. Kare nahi dek, I've never seen this before. Ache Khan nahi, truly I've never heard of this before, because it was coming from such a deep place of love. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, and I think this is actually, I remember reading this last time because I was so captivated by this verse. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, Bhattacharya kahe ema dora vachana, that very sweet sound, Chaitanya Srishti, is the creation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what is it? It is called a Prema Sankirtan. It is the congregational chanting in love of Godhead, of Prema Sankirtan. This is the most wonderful sound, the chanting and dancing of those who actually have love for Krishna. So if the other puts weight on you, how about that? That even puts even more weight. That we're supposed to develop that love for Krishna. And then this is the process of developing that, and the result of developing it is the same. It's chanting Krishna's names, Sankirtan. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Evake, Kaloa. And then Prema Sankirtan. This is Caitanya Srishti. This is the creation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is Prema Sankirtan. In this age of Kali, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has descended to preach the religion of Krishna consciousness. Kali Kali Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtan. Therefore, the chanting of the holy names of Lord Krishna is the religious principle for this age. Krishna Nama Sankirtan. Kali Kali Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtan. Anyone, and I'm quoting, anyone who worships Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by congregational chanting should be understood to be very intelligent. One who does not do so must be considered a victim of this age and bereft of all intelligence. In the age of Kali, then quoting from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, in the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, his servants, his weapons, and confidential companions. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then the king. Now, this is a little bit of an aside on the story, but it's a very important aside. And then it goes into another part of it, and I'm a little eager to read that, but this is also wonderful. So then the king, hearing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has manifested Prema Nama Sankirtan, which is the true religion of the age of Kali, the king hears this, and he says, Shastra Praman, you've given us evidence from Shastra. According to evidence given in the revealed scriptures, it is concluded that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord Krishna himself. Why then are learned scholars sometimes indifferent to him? Why isn't he accepted as the Supreme Lord who's giving the Yoga Dharma? You just quoted Shastra, and in this society that he lived in, people accepted the verdict of Shastra, so you've just done this. But why isn't Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted? And the Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, a person who has received but a small fraction of mercy from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he can understand that he is Lord Krishna. No one else can. He himself had experienced this. He himself, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, perhaps at that time the greatest scholar in all of India, had experienced him not being able to understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's position, even though Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had shown him so much, until he got the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that brings up another question, such as,
How to understand the Lord.
and yes, and the next part of that, how to
His
get his mercy.
Yeah.
So if we're really indeed wanting to understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and develop our love for Krishna, then we want to consider how can I get the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Something to meditate upon. So everyone, I'm not going to call on anyone, just think how you think you as an individual can get some, even a drop, but a small fraction of mercy. This will be, there's a verse that will come later. How can I get some mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? All one needs is a drop. Not even an ocean, or even a liter. A drop. Kripa lesha hoyande. Next verse, that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continues. If the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not bestowed, so on one hand, if it is bestowed, then you can understand him in the process, etc. And if it is not bestowed upon a person, regardless of how learned a scholar that person may be, and regardless of his seeing or listening, he cannot accept Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had personally experienced this. And Prabhupada in his purport here, he speaks about being empowered by the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. What is empowered? What does that mean, according to your understanding?
Given great strength.
Good. Or ability or Shakti.
Facilities.
Shakti Nahivina Tarpakat. So Prabhupada speaks about this. Without receiving the Lord's special power, one cannot preach His glories. The Lord's glories all over the world. Even though one may celebrate himself as a learned follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even though one may attempt to preach the holy name of the Lord all over the world, if he is not favored by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he will find fault with the pure devotee and will not be able to understand how a preacher is empowered by Lord Chaitanya. So at this time, there were some persons who were criticizing Prabhupada, and he's directly speaking about that they did not recognize, couldn't recognize that he was empowered by Krishna to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, which was obvious because he had spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya offers a quotation from 10th canto, 14th chapter, Lord Brahma's prayers. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, Lord Brahma is speaking to Krishna, this little boy who's expanded himself right before the eyes of Brahma into unlimited Vishnus, and each of those unlimited Vishnus had unlimited power. And he speaks this verse. If one is favored, Brahma speaks this verse, by even a slight trace of your mercy, of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. So one needs mercy to understand Krishna. He can understand the greatness of your personality, but those who speculate, use their own intellectual ability to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many, many years. So the first topic was the immediate recognition of the uniqueness of the chanting of the devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu who had traveled from Bengal, great love to see Mahaprabhu. Then the second topic was this short one, that Mahaprabhu was the Supreme Lord, and one needs mercy to be able to see him or to see Krishna. And now a third topic, which I find very interesting. I think all of these topics are interesting, but this one caught me when I was looking at the verses earlier. The king said, he was watching the devotees coming and they're chanting in ecstasy. And there's what's it called, Stala Praman, or there's certain shastras that are attached to every holy place that to describe the proper activities that one should perform when one is in the holy place, when one comes to the holy place, etc. So the Shastra says, and generally all the pilgrims would do this in Jagannath Puri, they'll first go see Lord Jagannath before eating anything. Sometimes they would shave their head, and before eating anything, they would do that. They would fasting a whole day to get them in the right mood to be in this holy place, to take advantage of the holy place. So before doing anything, this is what they're supposed to do, according to the tradition. But the king saw that the devotees of Caitanya Mahaprabhu were not following this. They were chanting, they were dancing in ecstasy, but they weren't following the standard practices of visiting a holy place in Jagannath Puri. So he comments on this. Instead of visiting the temple of Lord Jagannath, because the whole town of Jagannath Puri is based on three people, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. They're the center of the town, and people go there for that reason. But they weren't going to see Lord Jagannath first. They were running towards the residence of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said, why are they doing that? They're not following the prescription. And Sri Caitanya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, Bhatta kahe eta swabhavika preman vritta Mahaprabhu nilavare utkantata chitta. This is spontaneous love. They were going to see Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Not that they wanted to neglect Lord Jagannath, but they could not help. They couldn't control their spontaneous eagerness, enthusiasm to see Caitanya Mahaprabhu. It was bursting, it was in their heart, it was bursting through their limbs, and they were chanting and dancing, and they kept going past the Singadwara, where they would have entered to see Lord Jagannath, and kept on going towards the residence of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. All the devotees are running. Yeah. This is spontaneous love. Swabhavika, it's natural for them to do this. It's not, oh, what should we do first? It's probably proper that we go to see Caitanya Mahaprabhu because we're all from the same village as him. Or there was no calculation. Or what should we neglect Lord Jagannath? There was no calculation. They were just moved by their swabhavika, natural bhava, or love for Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and their incredible eagerness to see him. All the devotees are very anxious. Utkantita. They're anxious in their mind, have great anxiety in their mind, uncontrollable anxiety in their mind, just to see Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And this, and Ramananda Roy will later explain this in a little more detail. First, the devotees will meet Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and then take him with them, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, speak, to the temple to see Lord Jagannath. So they're under the control of their love, and their love will bring Caitanya Mahaprabhu with them to see Lord Jagannath. So another aspect of their mood, which is not to be imitated, obviously, because it was swabhavika, it was natural, not imitative. The king said the son of Bhavananda Roy, named Vaninath, along with 7 or 5 other men, went there to obtain the remnants of Lord Jagannath's food. Indeed, Vaninath had already gone to the residence of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and has taken a huge quantity of Mahaprasadam. Please let me know the reason for this. So they didn't go to the temple to see Lord Jagannath, but the prasadam, by Vaninath Roy's arrangement, is going to the residence of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So the king is a bit astonished, because the regulations and the traditions weren't being followed. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, understanding that all the devotees have come, Lord Chaitanya gave the sign he indicated. And therefore Vaninath and the others have brought such great quantities of Mahaprasad. So the devotees, they were eager to see the Lord. Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he knew that, and that they would all come running to see them, and he wanted to reciprocate with them. So Mahaprabhu gave the sign. That's the way Prabhupada translated. Just by his indication. Now that he just made some indication, some subtle movements. He didn't even directly say it. And Vaninath Roy, being his servant, which was described in the previous chapter, and this is the art of being a perfect servant, is you know the mind and indications of the master in such a way that just by the indications, you know what he's thinking and what he wants, and you do that before being asked even. Prabhupada said that's first class. Second class, he's asked and then he does it. And third class is he's asked and then anyway, maybe I'll put it on my list if I have time, or never mind, I have something else to do. Let's do it. So the king asked the Bhattacharya, why have the devotees not observed the regulations for visiting the temple, the pilgrimage place, such as fasting, shaving, and so on? Why have they first eaten prasadam? So other regulations are broken one after the next. And Bhattacharya told the king, what you have said is right according to the regulative principles. Bhattakaye, tumi kaho, say vididharma. This is the right regulations. But a ragamaga, I'd say, sukshma dharma mama. But there's another path, which is the path of spontaneous love, according to those principles There are subtle intricacies involved in the execution of religious principles. So there's so much to be said about this. Like Caitanya Mahaprabhu, it's clear from the opening chapters of in all of Caitanya Caritamrta, but directly stated that Caitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach spontaneous love. But the problem is that the support of spontaneous love, the structure that allows spontaneous love to arise is vidhi bhakti, the rules and regulations. And sometimes in the past histories, people, and present histories, the people will imitate the spontaneous love, knowing that spontaneous love is the goal, so I must be on that platform, so I'm just going to act spontaneously. And it causes so much havoc when that happens. So it's very important that everyone understand, first of all, who they are, what their position is, and are they spontaneously attracted to Krishna or spontaneously attracted to the material energy in the mood of an enjoyer, but yet wanting to be a devotee and then following the rules and regulations, and no imitation allowed. No imitation allowed for one's own benefit and for the benefit of the world. So just read a little of Prabhupada's purport. The devotees of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu were not common men, and they could not be subjected to the rules and regulations governing the visiting of holy places. Rather, they exhibited their spontaneous love for Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Immediately upon arriving at the holy place, they went to see Lord Caitanya, and by his order, they took Mahaprasadam without following the regulations governing holy places. Safaboma. So there's more on this topic. But at this point, any questions or comments? Yes.
Just when you mentioned every activity has two things in it, one physical activity and second one bhava. Is it, even if we don't do the activity in the perfect way, but the bhava is correct, Krishna is pleased, or both needs to be?
One tries to do both. Yeah, and if one could think, well, I'm not going to do the external activity until I have the right mood. But that also isn't good, because the external activity will give, with the proper hearing and understanding, will gradually give birth to the proper mood too. And on the other side, if you have the proper mood and don't do anything, you probably don't have the proper mood. Because proper mood, because who can do it perfectly? And who, when doing it perfectly, will think I'm doing it perfectly? But there's so many Shastric stories about this. But to have the proper mood and then and perform the activity properly is best. Not to think I have the proper mood, so therefore I'll do whatever I feel like. Because then the mood is probably not proper. But these devotees were overwhelmed by the spontaneous desire to see Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Did that answer your question? What was your understanding?
Even if we don't have that mood at the moment, we should still try to serve, and we should still try to follow the Vedic bhakti, and eventually mood will come.
who wants to? Another point in that, yes, very good. Another point is that if one is trying one's best, but knowing one's doing it not perfectly, then there are a few alternatives. One is you could think, anyway, I should do it. Anyway, I'm doing it, that's good enough. And another way is to think, oh, I'm not doing it very well, so I won't do it. But another way is humility, that I'm not doing it very well. Pray that Krishna and the devotees will accept this offering, even though it's so imperfect. So that will capture everyone's attention.
Krishna's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna's attention.
Yeah. It's okay. Any other questions or comments?
Is there a time when we have to set boundaries for ourselves? You know, if we're...
Depends how wild we are.
Huh?
Depends how wild we are.
How wild we are. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, yes, you know, like, and probably as we're aging, there's certain limitations. that
Oh,
we have to-
definitely.
Yeah.
Are you aging, Caitanya?
I'm the same age as you, 77, well, you're 78 now.
Yeah.
78 at the end of the year.
Okay. Are you aging?
My body is, and so is my mind.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're still trying your best?
Yeah.
Still,
Yep.
you still preach sometimes?
I'm still going out nearly every day with books and I was talking to Tanya Lawrence yesterday.
Who?
Tanya Lawrence, she's one of our ministers. You know,
She's
the
a
elections
minister?
were-
Parliament.
She's a minister?
Yeah, she's on
A
our,
religious person?
no, not that kind of minister, on the cabinet, you know, kind of in the
Oh,
government.
she makes cabinets?
She's been here.
Carpenter?
Carpenter. She's been to the gallery and she really liked it, so
Oh,
it
good.
was good for her. And I gave her a chat, be happy,
Yeah.
and a case of a flyer.
A case of a flyer? What's a case of a flyer?
We just to put put them onto his websites.
Oh, case of a Mars.
March, yes.
A case of a flyer. Sounds like an airlines.
Yes.
Put her on an airplane. Send it to England.
Yeah, with lots of LA room. No babies.
I'm not sure what your question was, but I'm not sure I answered it therefore. Oh yeah, can you put them, in other words, can you reduce your criticism of yourself if you can't do everything that you're supposed to do, that you
Yes.
think you're supposed to do?
Yes.
Yeah, don't criticize yourself, it doesn't help.
Don't want
It doesn't help, does
to
it?
criticise. Yeah.
Yourself.
Yeah, because the mind's the slave driver.
And who is the mind, who's the slave then?
We are to the mind.
Okay. But somehow your mind is getting you to distribute books every day pretty good. Is that you designing that, or is that your mind slave driving you?
I think it's probably pushing us. He wants it done. But when we're older and we've got pain in our bodies, you go out and start talking to people and there's no pain. You get home again and you're hobbling around the house in pain. So it's a good remedy.
But if everyone was doing that, what would all the hospital workers do?
We don't need any.
They'd be have jobs, and then,
You just go and hurry them instead.
anyway, you know your mission, empty the hospitals.
Yes.
Yes, Paul, did you want to?
I was just wondering for that question you asked, how is it that in the Sanatan Dharma they can just are ready to give? We didn't get the answer for that. So.
It's the nature of someone who is fully satisfied. Is that he wants to share his happiness. So satisfaction is born of sattva gun. and the nature of a Brahmana, and those even above Brahmanas. And it's one of the elements of the Varnashrama system, is that Brahmanas teach and they don't charge tuition or anything like that. Because their mood is just giving. And what do they have? They have knowledge. So therefore, they're so respected in society because of their unselfishness. Below them is which of the Varnas? So Kshatriyas give not knowledge but protection. But to get a Kshatriya's protection, you have to surrender and place yourself under his protection. So he's respected less. And a Vaishya will give, but he always makes sure he gets more than he gives. And a Sudra, I don't know. So Brahmins are respected so much in society for that reason. Everyone, when someone is charitable and just giving, they're naturally respected. Yes? Yeah, I mean, when you hear about a person who's giving in charity, naturally they're respected. Does that answer the question? So what allows one to be in that brahminical mood is sattva and self-satisfaction by knowledge, by spiritual practices, advancement in spiritual life. Because when one has the greatest thing, and if in distributing that greatest thing, it even increases within oneself, then that's the thing. And we saw with Srila Prabhupada, every minute of every single day was giving. And he was so extraordinary that he was so elderly and still. It appeared like he didn't have limitations. Especially his disciples thought he was going to be in this world forever because he just kept on going and serving, and 80 years old and 81 and not sleeping practically. And, yeah, traveling, preaching, directing.
The example of an ocean comes over.
Yeah.
He said,
How would you say it? Say the example that comes to you.
yeah, so the example of an ocean, which is always given, like in summers, it doesn't dry up, and in the flooding, rainy season, it doesn't overflood, like it doesn't come. It's able to contain because it's so deep. So until you are deep within, it's very hard for you to.
Impossible. You can imitate, but you'll empty.
Yeah.
So therefore, non-imitation is so important. And that's something that Prabhupada's, Srila Prabhupada's followers have to deal with. And even some of the followers of Prabhupada's followers is that, as Caitanya said, we have Prabhupada pushing us, but we can't imitate him, and you sort of want to, but it's dangerous to try. So you have to, so there's a tricky balance between knowing your limitations, which is maturity, and yet really sincerely trying your best. But still not to go beyond your limitations. And it's so tricky because because it's like being a mother in the sense that the children don't honor any limitations that you have. All mothers know this. They just want. And out of love, mothers, not that fathers don't, but mothers especially. But they may be greatly inconvenienced, but it doesn't mean anything. They just do it because the child is dependent upon them. And they naturally have so much affection. And when the children are young, they don't know what sacrifices the parents have gone through to help them start their lives in a wonderful way. But later when they get older, unless they're completely ungrateful, which sometimes happens, but if they've been brought up nicely, they really show so much deference and respect and affection to their parents, especially their mother. Usually the case. Yes,
Just one question about, you say Gopinathacharya was a brother of someone who was...
brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. In other words, their wives were sisters. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the elder of the two. Both of them were from Navadvipa. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, being such a famous, great teacher, he was invited by the king, Prataparudra, to come to Jagannath Puri and open a school there. So he left. Yes. Is that anything else?
Maharaj, earlier you were talking about how self-criticism isn't very helpful, and
Well, yeah.
I subscribe to that because I have seen the detriment of that. But then how does one understand Bhaktisiddhanta's instructions of one should beat the mind in the morning, I think, with a stick, and in the evening with a shoe? Or how does one understand that?
What isn't helpful is the constant thinking about how bad you are. Because all you're thinking, that's just a neurotic symptom. And it's not humility. Rather, you're just thinking about yourself all day long, but usually the mind will go through one phase or the other, thinking how you're great and everyone else is wrong, and then think how everyone else is wrong, and anyway, the other way around, but everyone else is good and you're terrible. So like this, the mind will drive one crazy, but that's not humility. And that's what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was saying, that one should neglect the mind, and what he meant was don't listen to it. If you listen to your mind, it's going to lead you to the wrong places, because the mind just wants, and it does, without great intelligence behind it, it doesn't discriminate between whether what it wants is good for them or not good for them. So basically he was saying, don't listen to your mind when it doesn't tell you things that are beneficial for you. That's basically what he was saying. And because the mind tends to be so overwhelming, so control it in the morning by just doing your duties and not listening to what your mind says. And then in the evening, the same.
Vaishnava does, he says, Maharaj, he says that identify the mind. You know, don't listen to it, but identify it when it's speaking to you.
So
And that was something-
differentiate between the mind and you.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise you'll beat yourself. Which looks quite funny, because who's beating who? You're beating yourself. So when I meant don't criticize yourself, when it doesn't work, I meant don't engage in neurotic behavior. Rather, say Hare Krishna, be happy. Something like that. And the cure, I mean, if you can chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day, all your problems are solved. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the it's already written. To the Prabhupada, he days and taken each other. To the Prabhupada, to the